wine-braised rabbit stew, known in German as Hasenpfeffer. And this is a traditional German recipe that my grandmother made and my mother made and I still make in a very family traditional way. There's probably as many ways to make Hasenpfeffer as there is to make paella in Spain. Every family has their own variation, but this one apparently came from my grandfather, who was a chef. Now, rabbit has fallen out of common eating practices. I'm sure some of you are sitting there going, Lindy, you're not going to cook a rabbit? No. But yes, I am. Rabbit is actually a very, very good meat to eat. It's very low in cholesterol. It's low in fat. It's a very easily digestible protein. And it's almost like a perfect meat. I don't know when it fell out of favor. Probably when, I don't know, Walt Disney came up with a Little Thumper or the Easter Bunny. But in the 50s, it was very, very popular to eat. And I strongly suggest that we bring it back because I think that there's a reason why rabbits multiply quite as quickly as they do. It's to give us a very good food source. Okay, now to start this dish, we're going to get our marinade ingredients together. And in the marinade, we're going to have about 2 bay leaves. These are fresh California bay leaves. About 10 to 12 peppercorns and 6 cloves of whole cloves. We've got about 12 crushed cloves of garlic and about 3 small onions that I've done a rough dice on. You want about 2½ cups. Now, the easiest way to crush your garlic is to just put it under your pie scraper. A lot of people use a knife, but if you're not really, good, you can cut yourself on a knife. I've never seen anyone cut themselves on a pie scraper, so that's easy to use. Go ahead and crush it, remove the skin, and there you have a nice piece of crushed garlic. Now I have my handy dandy garbage keeper so that we can compost all of our scraps. This was given to me by my sister-in-law for Christmas. Thank you very much, Stacy. And here we have an onion. The easiest way to do an onion, you always want to make sure you start with a sharp knife. Sharp knife is so much easier. Now this doesn't really sharpen it so much as it hones it. And every time you cut, you make little pieces of metal kind of flay. It kind of takes away your edge. So that just puts the edge back on. Cut down. Cut across. Remove the skin. That will go in our compost. Love to have good compost, good rich compost. And then just cut it down the middle. Make a couple of rough cuts. And cut down. A lot of times when people tell you to cut things, they'll show you the claw so that you can go. But if you're not a professional chef and you don't have to cut 1,000 of them, you don't really need to do that. Just make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. Then using our scraper, go ahead and put that into your, get rid of that, into our compost. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about what we're using to marinate it in besides the aromatics. So besides the aromatics, we're going to use a dry white wine. Today we're using a Chardonnay, an unoaked Chardonnay. And do remember, whenever you cook with wine, always cook with something that you're willing to drink. Don't ever buy anything labeled cooking wine or use something that is off. If you taste it off when you are drinking it, you're going to taste it off in your food. Another thing about Hasenpfeffer is a lot of recipes will use vinegar and water. I don't like the taste of vinegar in my Hasenpfeffer, and then you have to use sugar and stuff to sweeten it up at the end. I like the taste of wine. So my grandmother made Hasenpfeffer with wine, my mother made it with wine, and I make it with wine. In Germany, when I lived there with my grandmother, she made it with red wine, but their Hasen rabbit was a wild rabbit, and it was a dark red meat. Our rabbit is domestic and it's very light in color, so I prefer to use a white wine to marinate it. So now let's get our rabbit. You can find rabbit in almost all grocery stores, and if you have a meat counter, they can certainly order one for you. It comes like this in a whole piece. You can tell this is the back, this is the front, the little legs. See, and it usually comes with the liver and the heart, and you just get rid of those. We're going to cut our rabbit into pieces. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the hind quarter. Sometimes you need a little muscle. Then we're going to move the front. And we're going to cut this into, so using a little bit of muscle, you're going to separate this, and we're going to cut this into 3 pieces. These leg pieces, you're just going to cut in half. Tough little bunny. Okay, the point is that you want to have your rabbit in serving pieces, and it also allows it to absorb the marinade much more readily than a whole rabbit would. Okay, I want to show you a little trick that I've learned. You find these all the time in your hardware store. It's for lining your cupboards, and I really hate them for lining your cupboards because you can't slide anything on them, which is why it makes a perfect thing to put your cutting board on to keep it from sliding. You have a lot of chefs that tell you to put a wet towel or something, but then you have a wet towel to do something with. This you can just roll up and put it back in the drawer, so it's really convenient and it really keeps it solid. Now we're going to get a deep bowl, and we are going to put our rabbit pieces in. So we're going to put all the rabbit in here. We're going to put our onions, our garlic, bay leaves, peppercorns, cloves, and then we are going to pour our wine on top. Just wine, no vinegar, no water. It's also going to cook in this sauce tomorrow. The rabbit should be covered in wine. Then I'm going to take a plate and I'm going to set it on there, and that's going to keep the rabbit submerged and in there. So over the next 24 hours, I'm going to go in and I'm going to turn it 3 or 4 times and let it marinate. So yesterday we set our rabbit into our marinade to start marinating. And it has now been marinating for more than 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours, that's what you want to do. And I've turned it a few times, and now I'm going to remove it from the marinade and set it here to drain, and so that we can pat it dry. Okay, now we're going to we've got all of our pieces out of the marinade, and we're going to pat it dry with some paper towels. Now it's really important that you pat it dry really well, because wet meat doesn't brown, and you want it to really brown. So go ahead and pat it real nice and dry. We're going to season it later with some salt and pepper. And now we have left our beautiful marinade. And we're going to use this to cook our rabbit in along with some chicken stock. So what we want to do is take this and pour it through a sieve to separate the liquid from our onions and our garlic. Go ahead and we'll pull these bay leaves out. We'll add those back once we get this started. Don't worry about the peppercorns and the cloves in there, because at the end, when we're all done and ready to make our gravy, we're going to strain it anyway. So all of those are going to get strained out, and all you're going to have is this really, really delicious gravy. Okay, we turned our heat on high. We're going to bring our rabbit over, and we are going to salt and pepper it. Now, some recipes will tell you to flour the rabbit. Most European recipes do not flour their meat because then you're only cooking in the flour. You're browning the flour. And once you put the liquid in, that's just going to get all soggy. You want to brown the meat. So do your meat first with seasonings, some salt and pepper, and then we are going to use a nice extra virgin olive oil in our pan, as well as today I am going to use about a tablespoon of butter. Our oven's up to temperature, which is good. When this is hot and your butter is nice and frothy, add your pieces of rabbit, season side down. Don't crowd your pan because a crowded pan will not allow the meat to brown. So you might have to do this in batches. So you can see how nicely these are browning. You want to keep the heat up pretty high and allow them to really get nice and brown. This was a meal that was kind of a, I'm going to say dress to impress meal that I used to make when I was younger. It was the first meal that I made when I was introducing my husband's parents to my first son, and Hasenpfeffer was what I made. I also made it for a boyfriend's family one time because I really liked him and I wanted to impress them. And I think everybody goes, oh, she can cook rabbit. Oh my gosh, you know, she's pretty fantastic. She's a keeper. So it's pretty impressive. It's really delicious. And if you could smell this right now, it smells so good. Rabbit has been browned nicely, and we now have this pan. If any of the pieces of garlic or anything got stuck on rabbit, just remove them now. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our vegetables, the onions and the garlic, and we're going to saute those in all these wonderful pan drippings. So we've reduced the heat so that they don't want to cook quite as hot as the rabbit did. Reduce the heat and then add those and scrape up anything that came from the bottom as much as you can. We're going to add some wine to the marinade to this, so we'll be able to get all of the nice brown goodies up. So just go ahead and saute this for a few minutes until they get nice, soft, and translucent. That's when they turn kind of, you can see through them. So you can see that these are getting nice and soft. We're going to add a little bit of salt and a little bit of fresh ground pepper because you always want to keep your flavors, you want to season each layer. Now you're going to add a little bit, oh, I'm sorry, no we're not. First we're going to add our flour. Now I said don't flour your meat because that makes the flour turn soggy. But most people do their meat because they want to use it to thicken their sauce. It's much better to put the flour on your vegetables and allow that to thicken your sauce. Your meat doesn't get soggy, it doesn't have a soggy coating on it, but you still get the same effect of the thickness, the sauce thickening. You may have to thicken it more at the end, but that's okay too. Now we're going to add some of our marinade. Let's just add a couple of ladlefuls. That's about a cup. Did you know that a ladle holds a half a cup? A standard ladle holds a half a cup of liquid. So if you want to just measure a cup, 2 ladles, that's a cup. Right now we're scraping up the bottom. We're trying to get all that good brown stuff up. See how nice and thick already the sauce is getting? Okay. Okay, you can crowd them back in now because you're no longer browning the meat, you're stewing the meat. Getting ready to do a slow braise. Add your bay leaves back in. I am going to add about a cup of homemade chicken broth, or use low sodium chicken broth. Make sure you don't use anything with a lot of aromatics in it. You don't want to have carrots and celery and stuff tainting your sauce. Just use something with pure chicken broth. And then we're going to add some more of our wine marinade. And that's just about the perfect amount. And then we're going to bring this to a simmer. Okay, we've got a nice simmer. Let's give it a cover. And move it to a 325 degree oven. Ignore it for about an hour and a half, and it will be falling off the bone tender, and then we'll finish it up. So I bet you think I'm going to pull the finished product out of here. No, not going to do it. This is actually real life. I'm really cooking this for my family's dinner tonight. My husband's enthusiasm has waned since the hour and a half of cooking time, but our Hasenpfeffer is now ready to be taken from the oven. You can see it's nice and bubbly and smells. The biggest problem with cooking a dish like this is for an hour and a half you're smelling it cook, and I have to tell you, it makes you very, very hungry. So we're going to put it on the stove now. Keep it simmering. I'm going to remove the rabbit from the pot, and then I'm going to strain it off and tell you what we're making as our side. So as one of our sides, we are having some fried egg noodles. This is one of my family's favorites. You just cook the egg noodles, fry it in a little bit of butter and oil. We'll finish that off. Some steamed green beans. So let's go ahead and work on our Hasenpfeffer right now. Take all of our tender rabbit pieces out of their braising liquid. Smells so good. We're going to tint this with some aluminum foil, and we're going to stick it back in the oven just to keep it nice and hot. The oven's off, so we're just keeping it warm. It's not cooking anymore. I'm going to take this sauce that we made, and I'm just going to strain it into a sieve. And I'm going to take a spoon, and I'm just going to stir this around a little bit. I'm going to get as much of the onion and the garlic through the sieve as I can, while leaving the peppercorns, bay leaves, and cloves behind. Pour that back into the pan. And take it to the stove. Once it comes to a simmer, we're going to add a little bit of stock mixed with some cornstarch, because I like to use cornstarch because it doesn't have to cook for a long time like flour. If you put flour in this to thicken it, you have to cook it longer to get the flour flavor out, but with cornstarch you can just pretty much, it thickens up right away. So we're going to go ahead and let this come to a simmer, continue cooking our egg noodles, and get our green bean water ready for our green beans to steam. Okay, so we've got our noodles and we've got our green beans that have been steamed, and now I'm going to take with myself a nice little leg thigh piece here, and I'm going to take some of our lovely gravy that we've made, I'm just going to ladle a little bit of that over the top. And there is our German wine-braised rabbit, also known as Hasenpfeffer. So cheers to good food, good wine, good friends.